Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive? Today, we're going to be exploring the world of ketamine.
Ketamine, huh?
Ketamine! I know, right? We're using this book by Carl Jansen, Ketamine, Dreams and Realities.
I've heard of that one.
It's a really fascinating look at this whole, this drug, right? Ketamine. People think party drug.
Right, right.
But there's just so much more to it. Like, did you know there are now over 8,400 scientific papers
Wow.
about ketamine? Yeah. In medical databases? That's like a 30% increase.
In just 3 years.
Yeah, just in the last 3 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It really shows how much interest there is in ketamine from the medical community these days.
Exactly. And it makes sense. We're learning more and more about its potential uses, not just as an anesthetic anymore, but for like
Oh, absolutely. We're talking about things like depression, anxiety,
chronic pain even.
even addiction.
Yeah, it's pretty mind-blowing.
It really feels like we're on the verge of some kind of like ketamine revolution.
Yeah, a ketamine revolution in medicine. But before we get too ahead of ourselves,
Right.
let's take a step back and look at the history of this drug.
Okay, yeah, let's do that.
Because it's a wild one, full of contradictions, surprises.
Totally. You could almost say ketamine has like a...
A Jekyll and Hyde personality.
Yeah, exactly.
Like-
Like on the one hand, you have these early researchers
Mhm.
like Dr. Charles Rayer.
Yeah.
Back in 71, he called ketamine, get this, a dream-inducing agent.
The dream-inducing agent with potential for psychedelic exploration.
Yes, psychedelic exploration. And then you have Marcy Moore. She writes this whole book.
Oh, yeah. Journeys into the Bright World.
Exactly. Published in 78, she compares ketamine to like a love medicine.
A love medicine capable of transforming the world into, like, paradise.
The Garden of Eden.
Wow, that's quite the image.
Right. But here's the tragic part.
Oh, yeah.
Moore later became addicted to ketamine, and she ended her own life.
Yeah. It's a really sad story.
Yeah. And it really, I think, highlights the duality of this drug.
Yeah.
You know, the potential for good, but also the...
The potential for harm.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's something that Jansen explores throughout the whole book. This idea that ketamine,
Yeah,
it's powerful, you got to respect it.
absolutely.
Be careful with it. But okay, let's get into what makes ketamine so unique. One thing that really just blew my mind was its connection to near-death experiences.
And ease?
Yeah, NDEs. People taking ketamine have reported like out-of-body sensations.
They talk about traveling through tunnels,
Yeah.
seeing beings of light.
And feeling just this profound sense of peace, interconnectedness.
It's remarkable.
It's wild. So what's actually going on in the brain, right? Is this like
Yeah.
just some illusion, or there's something deeper happening?
Well, it seems like the key is ketamine's impact on certain receptors in the brain,
Yeah.
specifically the NMDA receptors.
Okay, NMDA receptors.
Yeah, think of them like doorways in the brain, right?
Doorway.
Yeah, they control how information flows, how we perceive the world.
Okay, I'm picturing these little doorways now.
Right. And what ketamine does, it's like it temporarily alters how those doors function.
Oh, I see.
And that leads to changes in our perception, our awareness, and ultimately,
Reality itself.
yeah, exactly, reality itself.
That's a really good way to explain it.
Thanks.
And it makes me think of that story in the book, the man who had a near-death experience during a fire,
Oh, yeah.
lost his partner, and then a week later, he takes ketamine for the first time.
And has the exact same experience.
The exact same experience. It was so powerful for him that he actually started using ketamine
Wow.
to help him cope with the grief, avoid PTSD.
That's a really powerful story. It really makes you question, you know?
The nature of consciousness.
Yeah. Like, can a drug really create such realistic
Simulations.
simulations of near-death experiences? What does that tell us about, you know, the possibility of an afterlife? Or are they
just elaborate illusions?
Exactly. And it's a question that's been around for centuries, right?
Yeah.
Scientists, philosophers,
Spiritual seekers.
all trying to figure it out. But it's fascinating that ketamine is bringing these questions,
to the forefront.
yeah, to the forefront of modern consciousness, making us re-examine our assumptions about reality.
And the potential of the human mind.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've got this drug that can mimic near-death experiences, has this really complex history.
Yeah, with both supporters and critics.
And now it's generating all this interest in the medical field. It's a lot to take in.
It really is.
So you're listening to this and thinking, okay, this ketamine stuff, it's pretty wild, but what does it all mean for me?
That's a great question.
Right. Well, that's what we're going to explore next. We'll dive into the potential risks, like addiction and side effects.
And we'll talk about those promising therapeutic applications that are emerging.
Yeah. And we'll even touch on some of the ethical considerations around its use.
The future of ketamine research. It's a lot to cover.
So buckle up. This deep dive's about to get even deeper.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about the history, the science, but ketamine's also got this reputation, right? As a party drug.
Yeah, for sure. It got really popular in those club scenes, those raves, especially back in the 90s.
Oh yeah, the 90s.
Jansen talks about how, like, DJs would bring it back from places like Goa, Ibiza,
Oh, wow.
and it just kind of took off from there.
Yeah, I can see the appeal, you know. Jansen says at lower doses it can be kind of stimulating.
Oh, yeah.
You feel energized, euphoric. I mean,
That sounds like a pretty wild night out.
right. On the dance floor, I mean.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the music, the lights, all that energy from the crowd, it all just amplifies the experience.
Yeah, but there's a flip side to this.
There is.
There's a dark side as well.
Yeah.
Jansen talks about people who become dependent on ketamine.
Yeah.
He shares these stories about addiction, how it impacts their lives.
It's tough.
It's really tough. And it's important to remember, like, with any drug experience, but especially with something like ketamine, that environment, your mindset.
It plays a huge role. What Jansen calls set and setting.
Oh, yeah, set and setting.
That can make all the difference.
Oh, absolutely. Between a positive experience and a really, really bad one.
Like that K-hole he talks about.
Exactly, the K-hole. That's like this intense dissociation, right? You feel completely detached from your body, from reality.
I can imagine.
It can be pretty disturbing for a lot of people.
Yeah, even without drugs, sometimes I felt, a little disconnected, a little spaced out. It's not always a good feeling.
Right. And ketamine can amplify that feeling significantly. And the more you use it, the more you chase that feeling.
You risk that dependency.
Exactly. You risk developing a dependence. Plus, there are all those physical risks.
The bladder problems, the cognitive impairment.
The psychological distress.
It's not something to mess around with.
Definitely not.
Okay, but let's switch gears for a minute.
Okay.
Let's talk about the potential benefits, right? Because there's a lot of excitement, especially in the medical world, about the therapeutic uses of ketamine. Oh, absolutely. Like we mentioned before, it's an anesthetic. But one of the most promising areas is its use as a rapid-acting antidepressant.
Yeah, this is what really stood out to me in the book.
Yeah.
There's evidence that even a single dose can significantly relieve severe depression.
And it works so much faster than those traditional antidepressants.
It's amazing. For people struggling with severe depression who haven't found relief any other way, this could be
The game changer.
yeah, a total game changer. Jansen also talks about this therapy called ketamine psychedelic therapy.
KPT?
Yeah, KPT. He explains how it's used in a controlled setting to help people process trauma, explore their subconscious.
It sounds pretty intense.
It does.
It is. The idea is that ketamine can help you access parts of your mind that you normally can't reach to gain those insights, process those emotions. But
it's still relatively new.
very new. We need a lot more research to really understand how effective it is, what the risks are.
Okay, so we've covered a lot, right? Ketamine, it's got this fascinating history. It can produce these wild experiences. It's got a dark side, but it also holds this incredible potential.
Yeah, for healing, for treating different conditions.
It's a lot to wrap your head around.
It really is.
It's like ketamine is challenging everything we thought we knew
about the brain,
about consciousness.
about reality itself.
It's like it's this key
Oh, a key.
unlocking hidden doors in our minds.
So like we said before, it's not a key to be used lightly.
Exactly. And I think Jansen's book does a great job of showing both sides, the benefits, the risks.
Yeah, he doesn't shy away from the complexities.
So what do you think, for someone listening, someone curious about ketamine, what's the biggest takeaway?
I think the most important thing is to remember that it's powerful. It has a wide range of effects, both good and bad. It's not a one-size-fits-all drug.
Yeah, its impact depends so much on the person, on the situation.
Exactly. So if you are thinking about experimenting, do your research, understand the risks, be cautious.
Yeah, to a doctor.
Learn about how it interacts with other medications.
Be aware of the signs of addiction.
Because like we've seen, ketamine is so much more than just a party drug. It's not just an anesthetic.
It can alter how we see reality.
Help us face our deepest fears.
And even unlock hidden potential.
It's like ketamine is offering us a glimpse into a world that's usually hidden.
But the question is, are we ready to see what's there? Okay, so we've covered the good, the bad, the mind-bending. Where do we go from here? What's the big picture?
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it? Ketamine really makes you think outside the box, doesn't it? Like, it's not just this party drug. It's not just an anesthetic.
Right.
It can unlock these, really profound experiences.
Yeah.
And it could change how we see reality.
And even heal.
Exactly. And Jansen, he really gets into all of that in the book.
Yeah.
He even talks about this idea of harm reduction.
Oh, yeah. He argues that just saying all drugs are bad, that's not the answer.
No, it's not that simple. He thinks we need to focus on giving people accurate information,
Right. Acknowledge the risks.
but also empower them to make their own choices.
Informed choices.
Exactly. And he even suggests that if we educate people about the potential benefits, the therapeutic uses, the possibility of personal growth,
Yeah.
we might actually reduce harm overall.
That's really interesting.
It's a whole different approach.
Yeah, it's not just say no.
No, it's more nuanced, right?
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if that kind of harm reduction strategy could be way more effective in the long run.
I think so.
But even if we, put aside the whole policy debate,
Right.
there's still so much to learn about ketamine, just on a personal level.
Absolutely. And Jansen really digs deep,
He does.
like into the science behind how it all works.
Yeah, like how it affects those different receptors in the brain.
Especially those NMDA receptors we talked about.
Right. And he explains how those interactions create those, really unique and diverse experiences people have.
Yeah, and the way he breaks it all down, the neurochemistry, it's actually understandable.
Yeah, it's not too technical.
Like when he talks about how ketamine affects the NMDA receptors, which are involved in learning, memory, pain,
Right.
it helps explain why it's such a good anesthetic and why people are looking at it as a treatment for depression and chronic pain.
Exactly. It all ties together. But he's also honest about the risks.
Oh, yeah, he doesn't sugarcoat it.
He shares stories about people who have struggled with ketamine dependence.
It's important to hear those stories.
It is. It reminds us that even though it has this potential to heal, it's still a really powerful substance.
Yeah, you have to be careful with it.
You do. And he really emphasizes how important that setting is, for the whole ketamine experience.
Yeah, your mindset, the environment.
All of that can make the difference between a positive experience and a negative one.
So it really highlights the need for responsible use.
Absolutely. And a supportive environment. Okay, so I think we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into ketamine, dreams, and realities.
We've seen how it blurs the lines between what's real and what's not.
How it can help us unlock parts of ourselves.
And how it's pushing the boundaries of medicine.
Ketamine, it's definitely more than just a chemical,
Yeah, it's a catalyst.
a catalyst for change, for exploring our consciousness.
So, to our listeners, as we wrap things up, here's something to think about.
Okay.
If ketamine can give us this glimpse into these incredible states of consciousness, if it can help us face our fears, unlock our potential, what does that say about reality itself?
That's a big question.
Is there more to our existence than we normally see? Is there more out there to explore?
Questions humans have been asking forever, right?
Yeah.
And ketamine, it's bringing those questions to light in our modern world.
It's a reminder that we still have so much to learn about the human mind, about reality.
And about the potential inside each of us.
It's given us all a lot to think about.
Free.
If you're interested in learning more, definitely check out Carl Jansen's book, Ketamine, Dreams and Realities.
It's a really thoughtful look at this complex, often misunderstood